Had a little technical
Good
glitch real quick.
morning.
Good morning. Good morning. Yeah, so when I do this, so I jump over here always straight from Bible every morning. Good morning, Jacqueline. Jacqueline's in. Chris Bounds is in here. All right.
Good morning.
People are piling in. I have this. So when I jump over here from Bible every morning, I have to switch, go to this other link. I jumped out, and suddenly my email's like, verify that this is you. I'm like, I have to verify? Why? All of a sudden, in the middle of like, my email was just fine a second ago, so I had to type that in to get into the link. And here I am. All right, there's Carrie Jumpers in here, AC Cruz is in here, Mitch Nelson. Oh, they're all piling in. I bet Mom's coming too. She's probably hot on everybody's heels. She's having thunderstorms in Minnesota, something like that. All right, there. Enough of me rambling. How are you, my friend?
Good. Just continuing to endure and search. That's been my life for the past, since July 18th. So, but there are some good opportunities on the horizon, so I'm going towards those.
Good to know.
The connection from my life to the topic today is that when things are going bad, or when there are things happening that aren't right, what is your normal inclination? Like, what do you normally do when you know things around you aren't right? What do you do?
Fall on my face.
Sure.
My
After
knees
that,
hit the floor.
Once you're on your face, what do you do?
Oh, I pray. That's what I mean. I seek the Lord. Seek Him. That's what I meant. Falling on my face that's my way of saying seeking the Lord.
Absolutely. And then the question is, do you act on what is going on? Do you do something about it? Or do you just accept what's happening is going on around you, even though it's wrong? What do you do?
These are vagaries. These are very vague.
They are vague for a reason. Okay. So the topic today is what is hyper-normalization and how to fight against hyper-normalization. It's a big fancy word, okay? But what's happening right now? And what's been happening since, I would say, right before 2020 is there are things going on done by the deep state, done by the shadowy powers that be, things that we knew were wrong. The problem is, I'd say a few years ago, so many people just accepted it. They knew things that were happening were wrong, but they didn't do anything about it. They just accepted it as the new normal. Your rights being violated? It's okay because, things are really bad right now. So this is the new normal. There you go.
I get knocked down, but I am again. Thank you, Carrie. Thank you.
Politicians being in their position for 70 plus years, that's normal. Totally normal.
Dianne Feinstein died.
Oh, yeah. That's happened today.
Speaking of politicians.
Certain people blatantly committing crimes, yet they're still there. And you just accept it. You accept that as the normal. That is what scholars have called hyper-normalization, where you're in a world where things are blatantly horrible. You know things are going wrong. And yet society, people as a whole, they've lost their power. They've lost their courage. They've lost that fire to fight against it, to go against it. And so they just embrace it as the new normal. This term was really prevalent at the latter part of the Soviet Union. From Brezhnev down to Gorbachev, things were so bad in the Soviet Union, yet by that point, no one could do anything. No one wanted to do anything. If you dared, go ahead.
My understanding is that they were fully aware of the utter corruption in the
Right.
government and
Right.
of the propaganda of like Pravda, and they were fully aware of it, and we're just kind of, that's just the way it is. We're gonna, we're not gonna do anything about it. We're accepting, right? It's like
Right.
mind-boggling, right?
It is mind-boggling. Why? Why is it mind-boggling?
Because it's counterintuitive, right? It's like,
Yeah.
aren't we supposed to have leaders that we can trust? Aren't we supposed to believe in truth? Isn't that like an absolute? How can our overlords get away with this? They've gotten away with it forever, right? And people feel like they're have no power, right? It's just me. What could I do against it? If I speak up, I'll be the nail that gets crushed and
Mm,
disappeared, and
right.
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 So,
If I speak up, I'll be tossed into the gulags.
yeah,
Right. In our society, in this country, we have not experienced collapse. We haven't.
no,
Praise God, we haven't. And yet, so many societies around the world have experienced societal collapse, like the Soviet Union. See, when it all started, it was bad, but a lot of the people still believed in it. But near the end, again, from Brezhnev down to Gorbachev, from like the 70s to the 80s, it's like people had enough knowledge and enough reach and connection to know precisely, yes, this is terrible. Yes, our rights do not exist. There is no such thing as individual liberty, but it's something. And if you have something as horrible as it is to wrap yourself in, that becomes your blanket. That becomes your normal. The good news is that society collapsed completely. And so my question for you and for everyone listening right now, do you think that collapse will happen in our society, or will it continue to endure and improve and grow as it has been? What are your thoughts?
very good, very good. No, I love this. So my thoughts are already on screen, right? There's something on screen that is my answer.
Mhm.
It's right. Where is it? It's right there. That word. Constitution.
Mm. Right,
So
right.
so there's something that is different, that's different than those cultures that have collapsed, right? This unique structure, right? Now, I don't believe the United States of America is like divine. I believe it's a divinely inspired idea. I believe the
Mhm,
Constitution and those godly men sought the Lord and came up with something that God wanted them to come up with. So,
mhm,
uh, and so the proof is in the pudding. What the Constitution created is a system in which humans can live harmoniously and independently, relatively independent, etc., and a system in which men can see their ills and correct them. And any system where people are rising to the top is going to be abused, and it's been abused and continues to be abused, but it doesn't negate the system itself. And I
mhm,
believe in something called reformation. I believe reformation, it's happened in history, in other structures and other cultures and other ways. And I believe that what you're talking about, like the people kind of feeling helpless, like there's nothing I can do, these are the overlords and this is the system we're within, and I as an individual, I think that is I think we're past that, or that is not a, though there are people in our culture that feel that, there are there are too many avenues where people realize they do have power, right? And with information technology spreading and this
mhm,
the local our federalism, right? That states having power and having enough states that have conservatism, that we feel like things are sliding out of control, but That's just if you watch the dirty laundry, right? If you're just glued to the headlines and the corruption and the horrible things that have never happened before happening, well, behind the scenes, there are incredible things happening that have never happened,
Right.
right? And
Right.
2016 is a prime example of that. That was a turning point, right? That turning point was the first time a non-elite, like, what? Donald Trump was a billionaire. Of course he's an elite. He's a non-insider. The elites we're talking about are the ruling elites. He's not a ruling elite. So first time a non-elite arises to the position of greatest power. And then we see everyone turn on him. We see the machine turn on him. So it opened eyes of the masses, the populace, like never before. So I am an optimist. I do believe we're heading for even harder times in the immediate future, but I believe we're heading for glorious times in the medium future. I believe, again, I don't know what's going to happen in 2024, but I do not believe in the utter collapse of the constitutional system of the United States. I think it will actually, I believe a reformation is coming, personally.
When we talk about the years, you mentioned 2016. Okay. I also am an optimist, but I consider myself a historical optimist. I only have hope because I've looked at the past. 2020 is the year I'm focusing on. That one year showed everyone how far people are willing to go to control their societies. And now that a few years have passed, more and more people are waking up, more and more people are asking questions. More people are saying, wait a second, that didn't add up. That didn't make sense. And now there's whispers, rumors of things like that happening again. Well, I already know people are not going to buy into it. Praise the Lord. At least people in our society. And so that's the point. 2020 was a historical year because it showed how quickly people were willing to just accept, embrace. We're all in this together. All that garbage. And I say it's garbage because it was so new. It was this new thing that no one knew how to deal with. And so it shocked me how many people were so willing to just give up so many freedoms and liberties for safety. The exact same thing that happened at the origins of a society in Germany pre World War II, Soviet Union, Maoist China. So, my hope is that people can look at that recent year and say, wait a second, we were almost crippled completely, all because we knew what was happening was wrong. We knew it violated our rights, and yet it was allowed to continue. But moving forward, if these tyrannical overlords try anything like that again, my hope is that people will have the courage now to simply not comply. And
You know,
that's the answer, patriots.
you know what we have that the Soviet Union didn't have?
Hmm.
The Second Amendment.
Precisely.
It's a
It's
different
funny.
world.
It's funny. We always it seems like we always go back to that, but that is the reoccurring fundamental difference.
This popped into my head at one point, and now I repeat it. Like, I'm convinced it's the Second Amendment that will save the world. Right? It's the Second Amendment that saved the world. It's like the Constitution of everything in it. That one, add-on. Oh, we finished this Constitution. Well, we need to put a few more things in there. That one little,
Hold on.
yeah. Hold on, not so fast. There's 10 more things at least of this thing. And when they put that in there, it was like, okay,
My
now.
boy Thomas Jefferson, TJ is in the corner, like, hold
Yeah,
on.
yeah. So
Wait a second.
it's the combination of the wisdom of that wisdom with entrepreneurship. Let's make guns and sell them, right? Let's make a bunch of guns and sell them to get them into people's hands. And because of that, people just don't. I mean, any invading force is always going to take that in consideration. And that's why I say the United States will never be invaded by, I mean, an official organized foreign army, right? But these people coming across our border, that's there's going to be some armed conflict. There's going to be, big pockets of patriots that are all, come at us, we're good. And then like a bunch of the people on the terror watch list, like they keep catching all these people from terror watch lists. Well, what about the ones they don't catch, right? Because they're not catching
Right.
them all. So there's all these, uh, there are these enemy infiltrators coming into our country, going to some pre-designated place, I'm sure, to network with others that are already here or whatever, right? There's plots against our nation from not from one place, but from multiple places, right? We've got communist China hates us. We've got the drug cartels. We've got globalism. We've got environmental wackos. It's like there's all these different disparate forces fighting against good. Well, the good news is good triumphs over evil. And so we, the power of information technology has hardly been harnessed yet. And it's only going to get better and better. And I'm going to do everything in my power to right these wrongs. And, I have very grand plans, and I could go into those details, but maybe that's another episode.
Well, that is why I personally love 2020. I love 2020 from a historical point of view because even though we have these amazing rights, 2020 still happened. People were still willing to give up so many freedoms, even though they were packing. And that's the thing. As we move forward, we need to move forward optimistically, but cautiously as well. We need to be mindful that any dictator in our modern age who really wants to take control of power, all they would have to do is take control of different services. Like you're not allowed to purchase this thing because we don't like what you're doing. You're not allowed to say this thing because we don't like what you're saying. We're already seeing little whispers of it. Okay. But you're right. At the end of the day, when it all boils down to it, and this is all for you two patriots, what destroys their power, what takes away the power of any tyrant, is if the people do not comply. Do not comply. Don't do it. Refuse it. And if enough people refuse it, the rulers have no authority. They can't do anything.
30 years ago, there were what? There were three. How long has Fox been around?
Oh gosh.
Has it been 30
Well,
years?
cable media really became a big thing in the 70s, 80s.
Well, let's go back 40 years ago. There were three news networks, right?
Yeah.
ABC, CBS, NBC. And then you added Fox later on, and that was the mainstream media, right? Legacy media. That was the big dogs. That's where most people got their news, right? And they
Right.
were all controlling the narrative, right? It was very limited. Fast forward, and it's all gone. It's like completely gone. That power to
That's true.
control the
That's
narrative is
very true.
completely gone. There is nothing they can do. And here's a case in point. Like people like me, a wacko YouTuber, I put out a video on Sweet Home Maricopa. I got 35,000 views, and I realized, oops, I was a little ahead of, I made some assumptions, based on my own personal hopes and biases, that Katie Hobbs is gone as the governor. I didn't say she was gone for good. It was a big question mark, but I posted a video, after Steve Turley, like Steve's going to report on it, I'm going to report on it. And I reported on it, and, I just delisted it. I unlisted it, it got a lot of views, but I'm like, I don't want to point people in the wrong direction. I'm going to post a retraction, not a retraction, but a kind of a
Update.
correction, an update. And we can do that instantly, right? We can do that instantly. And with the mainstream media, they could do that, but they had no interest in doing that. They had a narrative they want to control. But when you have on the ground people like me, thousands and thousands of people like me that are all, feeding into that information system, it's a it may seem it's more decentralized and may seem counterintuitive, but it's actually a better system. Like people are able to get information at they're able to get false information and true information equally, but people gravitate to what they know, what seems true or what's sincere, and you can always be updated in an instant rather than waiting for 24 hours for the next broadcast of my favorite news show or whatever. Right. And so we have everything at our fingertips, and you have people knowledge is power, right? That old trope that's comes out of the Bible, by the way. Fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. That's where all power is. And so the combination of the Second Amendment and freedom of speech and advancements in technology, those are that's where I'm hopeful, right? I think enough people have been woken up, like you said, 2020, the 2016 and 2020 and that lockdown, that 4-year span was this huge like a seismic event historically. Obviously, looking back in history, it'll be like, let's talk about this period of time. And what people are going to see is the exposing of the two systems, right? Like you couldn't, like if you went shopping for a president, right? And for a good president, if you went shopping to the mall and you go, let's pick a president. Let's see that president. This is what his 4 years look like. And next to him, let's pick that president. And here's what his 4 years look like. Because you can't shop for a president. But if you wanted to shop for a president, you want to, let's see what that president's presidency, which one do I want? That one's 4 years or that one's 4 years. Well, we have that shopping list now, right? We have the shopping list glaringly clear for us. We have 4 years of that kind of president, Donald Trump, and 4 years coming up on 4 years of this kind of president, Joe Biden. You compare them. Let's see, which of these two presidents do I want as my next president if I get to pick? Oh, we do get to pick. Well, what do you know? We do get to pick between these two side by side. We put them next to each other. This is what this style of leadership looks like. And that's all that's going to happen in 2024. Is like, what did the world look like 4 years ago before this guy? Right. So
if any patriots out there watching or listening would like a good movie to watch that will really illustrate what the world could look like if you embrace hyper-normalization, there's a movie I want to recommend. It's called Equilibrium. It's a movie that came out in 2002. It came out after The Matrix. Matrix came out in 1999. Equilibrium has some big name actors. Has Sean Bean, Christian Bale. It's a fascinating movie. It kind of went under the radar, but this movie is set in a dystopian, futuristic setting. But in the future, in this world, creativity is outlawed. Any form of individual creativity is literally illegal. And there are moments in the movie where you see people walking around, going to their jobs, doing their thing, and there's like a massive speakers coming from the tops of the city saying everyone must take their dose of medication, whatever it is. And everyone just stops, raises up, does this, and move on with their life. In fact, the main character, Christian Bale's character, is known as an enforcer. And his job is to find people who are showing any signs of unique individuality.
Independent thought.
Independence. Right, exactly. And he hunts them down. But the cool thing is, throughout the story, he becomes to question the system. He questions things. And it's a great movie, but it's also terrifying. It's terrifying because of how close we came to that.
Well, I'm glad you bring this up because I'm going to look for that movie.
It's really good.
Well, so speaking of creativity and doing something creative and creative thought, again, I point to this word right here. Talk about creativity, right?
Yeah.
Constitution. These guys were inventing something out of thin air, right?
Yeah.
They were taking, here's all these other structures. That one's good for this reason, but fails for that reason. Right. That one's good for these reasons, fails. They're taking all these different governmental structures and like, well, let's just take the good from all and try and expunge the bad from all. And here's how we do it. And that's total creative process. And it's a collaborative creative process. I'm telling you, there's individual creativity, and then it gets exponentially emphasized when you have multiple creatives coming together. And that's what our Constitution is. And that's what the proof is in the pudding. The United States of America, greatest creative style of governing ever. Look what it's done for the world.
Mhm.
And just as an example of the collaborative process, so I'm in a band and I'm the singer and lyricist, and that's like a huge part of music,
Really?
right? I write the lyrics and I'm the singer, and I don't play an instrument. I can, but I have amazing musicians, but I don't start writing lyrics until I get a piece of music from either my bass player or
Mhm,
my guitar
mhm,
player. They'll send me a
mhm,
little idea, and then they'll send it to me. I'll process it. I'll meditate on it. I'll walk around with it in my head. I'll say to them, "Can you double this up or triple this up, and then add that here?" And I'll kind of structure it out, and then I'll listen to it some more. And the
mhm,
mood of the music that they give, the mood, I meditate on it, and maybe I'm going through something in my life, and it comes together. And my lyrics and my singing wouldn't have happened if I didn't already have their input. And together, then I hear it one way, and my bass player hears it one way, and then we hand it to our guitar player, and he plays it out, and it like comes out a little different than we had heard it. But I'm like, oh, that's good too, and it becomes its own thing. And as a unit, the four of us created something, and it's exponentially better than if it was just us independently. Anyway, that's kind of a bit of somewhat of a tangent, but creativity in the collaborative is how God designed us. We are in His image. He is a creator, right? He is a creator, creativity, independence. And so thinking outside the box, right? Breaking
yes.
out of a hyper-normalization. And I'm excited about the vision that I have, the vision I have for the future. Like, just so you know, I had a really good week this week. I had just on a personal note, the thing I've been working on for the first time ever, I was able to send a pitch summary to some potential investors. So
Beautiful,
yeah, so I was
beautiful.
I was asked. I reached out to Doug Wilson. I think I've mentioned him here, and told him about my project, and he got it immediately, understood it. And Doug Wilson's an
That's
influential
awesome,
fellow,
man.
and he connected me to some. So they asked me, send us a pitch summary. So I put together a 5-page pitch summary, and they received it on Wednesday. And so now it's the pray and wait, and it's in the Lord's hands. But I'm telling you, if these guys, if I get my next investor in Hollywood, there's kind of it's not a common phrase, but it's one that I've heard, that the hardest investor to get is your first investor.
Mm,
The second hardest investor to get is your second investor. It's just not easy to get people to give you money, right? Especially if
yeah,
you're
yeah,
nobody, right? So I got my
yeah.
first investor. So I'm over that hurdle. And the first
Good for
investor
you, buddy. Good for you.
successfully locked down the
That's
intellectual
awesome.
property. And then I just put together the pitch for the second investor. And if you're thinking about it, the first investor is the smallest investor, right? If you're thinking correctly, your first investor is going to be the smallest one. It's like, let's get started on this thing. And that happened. And the second investor is going to be much larger. And if I'm at that phase where this next round of investment is about to happen, hold your horses, fasten your seatbelt. Everybody who's been following along with what I've been doing is going to get really excited. So, I don't want to get your hopes up too much, but I just had a really good week, and it's all about creativity. What you're talking about. I was asked by investors to tell them what I'm working on, and I've been working on this thing for 6 years. So I was like, oh, I got to focus. I got to focus on pitch to them specifically, right? I had other pitches prepared at other times, but
Mhm.
it continues to develop, and I'm like, okay, let me narrow this in on. I know who these guys are. I know what they've heard. How I've been referred to them. I'm going to pitch to them. So anyway,
That's awesome, man.
so
Praise God.
we'll see. We'll see. May hire you as a consultant, historical consultant or something. We'll see. We'll see. Maybe
Well, hey,
that's why you're not
Patriots.
finding a job.
Yeah. Well, hey, Patriots, that's all we got for today. Uh, Thank you so much for tuning in. Michael, it's always a joy to see you. I really appreciate it.
It's a nice anchor in your week, right? It's like this is something that is consistent, especially if you lose a job and you're kind of drifting and pursuing and kind of in this neverland ambiguous, what am I supposed to do with my life right now? I don't
Yeah.
have a routine. Well, at least you got me. You got me here. I'm here. We're here.
Thank you.
This won't
Thank you.
change. We're going to do this. All right. I love you, brother.
Take care, Patriots. Never surrender, never submit.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
God is in control. End stream.